Hello YouTube. I sort of hesitate to make this video, but it's better if I just do it anyway because really want to be more active on YouTube. And I sort of not only procrastinate, but I also am kind of like a perfectionist. That's why I got into video editing, because I wanted to make my videos perfect, but I realized that it's better if I just do it and from there just continue learning more as I go on. In other words, learning how to video edit on the job. But for now, I'm sticking with the classical recording, well, how I usually make my previous videos. Anyway, the topic that I want to discuss, and this totally relates to the picture that I'm using, as usual, is how my ex proved me right. And sadly, though, I'm using this picture because essentially that's what it reminds me of, my ex. In my last video, I mentioned how I wanted to discuss more about my ex after, the longer that we no longer see each other, no longer make any form of contact with each other, and the fact that I moved very far away from the original place where we dated, we see each other. What I want to discuss is basically when I break up with my ex, there were reasons why. The biggest one was all my effort, all my attempt to make the relationship work, make the relationship keep going. It was all in vain because I quickly realized that when it comes to romance, it needs to go both ways, no matter what. When I say both ways, I mean both parties, both individual, need to have that desire to want to stay with each other. They need to have that desire to, that you really want to love the other person and clap each other cheeks, basically. But the desire has to be there, and the desire needs to be genuine, natural, nothing forced, nothing pressured. It has to be there naturally, and it has to eventually grow like a plant, basically, a very healthy plant. And quickly I realized around the time when I decided to make that choice to break up with my ex, I realized that the relationship was very, very one-sided. And the biggest question I had for myself at the time was, why in the world did she even bother staying with me? Like, I put a lot of effort to stay in the relationship and essentially to convince her to, be with me, stay with me. But I constantly wonder, why did she even bother to stay with me? My honest opinion was absolute convenience. It was more like a situational ship, if that's the best way I could describe it. But what made me snap out of it, and what made me make that choice to break up with my ex, was the fact that she kept a guy essentially friend zone for 10 years. And this guy that was friend zone for 10 years, he was absolutely on a whole another level when it comes to friend zone. Like, the best way I could put it, he's essentially another boyfriend but without the sex. Me, I had that privilege to essentially clap her cheeks, but the guy that was friend zone, he never clapped her cheeks until after I break up with her. But I'll explain later what happened. But this guy was essentially on the Uber level or God tier level of friend zone. And when I first met my ex, I clearly remember she had a picture of herself with the guy, but they were not together. Let me make that clear. They were not together. The guy was absolutely friend zone. The guy constantly pursue her, constantly message her, etc., etc. And my ex, she clearly, well, she clearly likes him, but she never was attracted to him or desire him. But she likes him enough to hang out with him, have the picture with herself and him on her cell phone, on the lock screen. Basically, message each other and, hang out, like do all the boyfriend and girlfriend things except without the sex. I did see them kiss each other the first time when I met her, but when I asked her about it, she clearly told me that they were just friends. They were just, you know, friends, but with no benefits. If that makes any sense. But still, that's, to me, that was absolutely baffling. But what's more baffling was how long they knew each other. This guy was in a friend zone for nearly a decade. No joke, guys. Nearly 10 years. And by the time I met my ex, she was definitely, we definitely had an age gap, and she was a lot older than me, but she was very beautiful and she was youthful looking. So, a young guy like me at my age at the time, it wasn't a bad thing for me to date an older woman, especially the fact that we had an age gap, but she was older and me, I was still younger. And we, you could say we naturally click in terms of personality wise, and we just hang out together, and from there we just started off. And now that I look back, because I was so naive at the time, I'm still technically naive, but I learned my lesson. She was just with me just to have fun, and because of my efforts, the relationship lasted almost 5 years. But what made me snap out of it is the realization that the relationship was one sided. And without the desire from her end, I just knew deep down in my heart that the relationship would not last any longer. So I made the most difficult choice, which is break up with her. And because I was the one that broke up with her, she didn't took it well. In matter of fact, she was emotionally butthurt, and she was looking for an opportunity to get revenge on me. But what's funny is that I never gave her that chance until I made a mistake. And the mistake I did was essentially mention it on social media, and she took that, and essentially she tried. She tried to get revenge on me, but it failed. Because, like I said, I didn't really gave her that chance for her to get revenge on me. She tried, but it failed, and I managed to leave that relationship scathed unclean. All I had to do in my part was leave her alone entirely and don't even bother making any forms of contact with her, because from there she's living her own life as well as I'm living my own life. I'm very far away from where we originally met and hang out. That being said, about the guy that was friendzone for 10 years, my ex did something that essentially proved me right, and I am a little bit traumatized about this. I cannot see relationship the same way again, but at least I know what to look out for when it comes to looking for a long-term commitment, and that is the desire, guys. The desire has to be there, and sexual compatibility also has to be there too. And the reason why I'm using this picture is because before I dated my ex mentioned to me several times about her previous partners, her basically exes, and me, sadly, I was just another ex in her line of life, if that makes any sense. I was just another boyfriend that's eventually gonna be thrown away. But at least she's gonna remember me by, especially the fact that I broke up with her and she tried to take revenge on me. And what relates to this picture is essentially is that a woman will never forget their exes, especially the ones that they slept with. And it's funny now that I think about it, especially sexual compatibility. I've been watching a lot of podcasts about divorce lawyer and relationship psychologists, like the people who specialize in relationship. If I'm correct, they're called relationship therapists. They give out the best advice, but the most practical advice. And one of the most practical advice they constantly mentioned, because it has a direct correlation of how a relationship could last for a very long time, is sexual compatibility. My ex mentioned to me that her first sexual boyfriend, they were not sexual compatible. As a matter of fact, she was disgusted, and I clearly remember that she did not enjoy it. And she tried. She even forced herself to, you know, engage in that activity, and yet she did not like it. When she engaged it with me, I could tell that she sort of forced herself, but she was just doing it to please me. And that's when I sort of knew that the relationship is not gonna last long. I just knew that the relationship is not gonna last long due to the sexual compatibility. And it's funny now that I'm watching all these podcasts. One of my favorite divorce lawyer, which I will leave a link down in the description below, he also mentions this, that when in a marriage, when people are having less and less sex, that's usually a bad sign that the marriage could potentially fail and eventually lead to a divorce. And yes, sex is the biggest factor here. Now, about the guy that was friend zone, like I said, the guy was friend zone. He was on the god tier level of friend zone, and yet my ex just kept him around just for entertainment purposes. And it's funny, when I broke up with my ex, she rebounded with a guy that she friend zoned for 10 years. So that guy officially got out of the friend zone, officially, and I bet he was happy, but he was not ready for the heartbreak that's about to happen to him. And the more I think about it, the more I cannot believe a guy like me turned out to be correct, turned out to be right. I never wanted to be right about her because she looks so innocent. But sadly, just like this picture, the fact that she has a past, the fact that she slept with a bunch of dudes, including me, she cannot escape what she made of herself. And because of that, she ended up proving me correct. What essentially happened is, after I break up with my ex, she rebounded with the guy that she friendzoned for 10 years. So they've been in a relationship for some time. And about 2 or 3 or 4 years later, I'm gonna say 3 years. About 3 years later, I managed to make contact with the guy, and the guy sadly told me that they're no longer together. They broke up and they no longer speak with each other. And just like me, the guy, the he, just like me, the guy, he understand that it's a real breakup and they cannot see each other again. They cannot communicate with her. And like he said, breakup is bad, and yeah, it is bad, but here's the thing, guys. When you have a history, that history will follow you no matter what, even if you try to forget. Whatever you did in your past, it cannot be undone. And sadly, I think this is a consequences that girls have a hard time comprehending, because I'm not saying women are stupid. I'm just saying that women sometimes, well, depending on the woman herself, if they make stupid choices, stupid decision, even if she's smart, if she makes stupid decision, that stupid decision will follow her for the rest of her life. And basically what I'm trying to say is that the stuff you guys do in your past, it cannot be undone. Like once you lose your virginity, that cannot be undone. That shit will follow you. And just like this picture that I'm using, you're gonna have a lot of memories of guys that you slept with, and sadly you're not gonna remember all of them, but you're gonna definitely remember the activity you did. And I say this because my ex proved me correct, and sadly my ex also mixed up names with my name with one of her previous exes. To me that was bizarre. I clearly remember when I broke up with her the last time when we chat with each other in a civilized manner. She mixed up my name with one of her ex's name, and I knew that she was fucking broken. I knew that my ex was broken, but sadly I cannot fix her, because for a woman to be fixed, quote unquote, the woman herself needs to fix herself. And most importantly, the woman needs to stop doing the shenanigans that she's doing to herself. And this is why I broke up with her, because literally she has more power in a relationship than she realized. And like I said in the beginning of this video, guys, relationship needs to go both ways. If the relationship is one-sided, then it's a doomed relationship. It's a relationship destined to fail. And I knew that the relationship with my ex, it was destined to fail because it was one-sided. I was the one that pouring more of the effort, but in reality I'm just becoming a blue pill simp. And what snapped me out of it was witnessing a guy who was friendzoned for 10 years while she dated a bunch of dudes and basically, you know, let other dudes masturbate inside her. And me, I was basically one of those dudes. So I guess I'm part of her list of her exes. And the just saddest part is that at that time when I was dating her, she was already in her 30s. I'm pretty sure when she broke up with the guy that she friendzoned for 10 years, she was in her mid 30s. Now I believe she's in her late 30s. Like I said, guys, once you do something, especially the ladies out there, once you make a bad decision, especially a sexual decision, it cannot be undone. You have to learn to live with it, learn to live with the consequences. And if you've been watching my previous video, I mentioned this many times, that I fell down the rabbit hole of sex itself, and I realized that sex is very sacred. I mean, once you lose your virginity, that's it. It cannot be undone, and you cannot, go back in time and fix it. You gotta learn how to live with it, live with the experience. But we're living in an age where this is becoming a common thing with women, and sadly, I'm one of those simps, those guy simps that had a bad experience with women. But I learned my lesson. Now I know what to look out for when it comes to women. So guys, I'm gonna end this video because I almost hit the 20-minute mark. But I hope you guys understand that what I'm trying to get through. The most tragic thing is that I wanted to be wrong about my ex because my ex seems so innocent. But like I said, she ended up proving me correct. And I hate that. I hate being correct for the wrong things. Well, guys, I'm gonna end it here. And thank you for listening. Goodbye.